Welcome back to the Jonesing for Sports podcast, the ultimate podcast for Michigan sports, both college and pro. I'm your co-host, Cody, joined by my brothers from the same mother, Travis and Brandon. In this episode, we'll break down the pros and cons from the first third of Michigan football's 2023 campaign, and then we'll tackle some takeaways from the Lions-Falcons showdown that brought our boys in Honolulu Blue to 2-1 on the season, with a look ahead to the keys for victory against the Villains in Green Bay. So grab your snacks, settle in, and let's dive into that sweet, sweet action you can only find here at the Jonesing for Sports podcast.
Welcome to the Jonesing for Sports podcast.
Boys, I had every intention of coming up with a shower thought for today, and then I didn't. Did either of you have anything to bring to the equation? Sweet.
I got one.
Oh, go ahead, Trav.
Go. So, Brandon got a new fish tank today. That looks super nice. Added some fish to it. And that got me thinking, if you could have just the perfect fish for a fish tank, size doesn't matter, what fish would you choose for your fish tank?
Size.
So wait, what's the question?
Your perfect fish tank fish.
Oh, perfect fish tank fish. Gotcha. I thought you were asking for my perfect fish tank. I'm just like, how many different options are there? Nope. I guess if I was answering that question, my mind would go to Despicable Me, where Vector has like the floor tank with a shark. He's stomping at it, going down fish. But I've always wanted an arowana. Cannot afford an arowana.
You might need to explain that fish to
so the arowana is not to be confused with the popular marijuana. That is an Amazonian fish that has like a silvery gold appearance, very sleek, very athletic, and also very rare. I don't know why. I think it probably started either from river monsters or just playing Animal Crossing. Back in the day when I'd play Animal Crossing, my only goal was to catch all the fish. And that was one of my favorite ones that I caught. It's just a super cool fish. Love to catch one day. Doubt it'll happen. I don't know when I'm going to plan on going to the Amazon, but I think that'd be sick to have in the home.
So you said size doesn't matter. So my aquarium needs to be large enough to house a sailfish, and it will be an aquarium without a top, so that way he can breach out of the water and fly and shake his head and let his sail fly in the wind, and I will paddle my boat in the aquarium waters and we'll be buds. It'll be like instead of the old man in the sea, it'll be the younger man and the aquarium. And instead of me trying to kill the fish, we will be friends.
I like it. I've always liked the idea of just having a piranha. Pretty simple.
Scares me.
I just
big face.
Yeah, but like the food you could feed him, he just eats the same diet as me pretty much. So I feel like that'd be kind of fun. And kind of, I don't know, it's got some villain vibes to it to have a pet piranha.
Definitely.
So if I had a piranha like in my office, just kind of like that.
We can do that, Trev. I think we can make this happen.
All right. I've always also really liked a blacklight jellyfish tank.
Ooh, that'd be cool. No?
I hate jellyfish.
I do too, but like this might make it so you
with them.
Yeah, and you're their captive. You have them as prisoners, and you just look at them for their beauty.
Okay, I'm kind of coming around on this. You guys ever have things that bother you so much that it's like their mere existence really just kind of gets under your skin?
Sure.
Jellyfish is that for me. It bothers me. They don't have brains. How do they work? Why do they swim? What is this creature that eats food and floats about? It doesn't think thoughts. It doesn't say, I want to swim over here and go to and fro. No, it has no brain. This is this is not natural. They're little aliens.
Do you guys think that plants can feel or think at all?
No. That's what a jellyfish is a plant.
I think they can respond to stress, but I don't think they think to respond to it.
I don't think the jellyfish... Okay, so Brienne sent me a video of this snorkeler. He blew a, what do you call it, a bubble ring? And it comes up and it hits this jellyfish, and the jellyfish literally starts tumbling, endlessly. And it's kind of funny, but also I liked it because I don't like jellyfish, and I got to watch it have that
Suffer.
trouble. But the thing is, I don't think it suffered at all. I don't think the jellyfish is floating around going doo 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 doo, eat some plankton, and then all of a sudden, whoa 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 whoa. No, the jellyfish is just I'm not even thinking because I don't have thoughts. It's just flip-de-doo, back to the same old thing, and I don't even know that happened. So I don't think it could say ow. It would just be I avoid this. Or think
there's
ow. I want to
There's a
punch
good-
them in their little bells. That's the jelly top. The top part is the bell.
So the biggest takeaway from the shower thought section is Brandon's hatred for jellyfish.
They're dumb creatures. And they should, if they could, they should feel bad, but they can't.
What do you hate more, jellyfish or mosquitoes?
Ooh. That's tough. Mosquitoes.
No way, that's tough.
I think mosquitoes because
Good.
mosquitoes have a little bit more of the animal in them, and so I blame them more, even though it's just their nature. I shouldn't blame mosquitoes, but I still do.
All right, jellyfish
jelly-
or poison ivy?
If I encountered jellyfish more often, it'd be jellyfish. But I deal with poison
But
ivy.
you
It
don't.
climbs on my trees.
I literally have poison ivy right now.
Sometimes I'll get
Sucks.
poison ivy just from mowing the grass, and it really does annoy me. But I think they're on the same level because basically, jellyfish is poison ivy of the ocean, and it just hurts a little bit more.
Except it can swim towards you.
Oh no, heat-seeking poison ivy—that's a nightmare.
Exactly.
Oh man.
Yeah, does that change your answer at all?
Okay, I'm gonna write this. This is a movie. When jellyfish go bad, they're gonna take over. They're
mean when
they're
they
like the
develop
windmills of the
sentience?
ocean. Yes.
All right, let's go on to football. But remind me for next week's shower thoughts. I'm mad that I suggested this one because I've been down the rabbit hole of quantum mechanics and the double slit experiment so hard the last 2 weeks, and I just really want to talk to you guys about it. So maybe after the pod or next week we'll
Boy,
get
we
into
are on
that.
such different levels. You're into quantum mechanics, and I've been reading the heck out of the little engine that could, and that's about the extent of my intellectual activity lately.
Hey, that's
Well,
good motivation.
we do have one
though.
thing that joins us together, and that's football. Boys, let's break it down, discussing the pros and cons of Michigan's first third of the season. Obviously, a little bit less than a stellar of a start than we probably would have been hoping. We discussed that a little bit in the last pod, more so just pertaining to our level of panic. But I think it would be a good idea if we would just break it down into specifics of what do we think has gone really well so far, maybe surprisingly well, and what do we think could certainly use some improvement.
All right, I just want to jump on this because I have one that I've been really proud of for Michigan. Sometimes I might be too harsh, and so I want to get out in front and say I've been really impressed by the defense and specifically the interior defensive line. Going back to just generally the defense, they haven't given up more than 7 points in a game yet. And if you go to the Rutgers game, they gave up a touchdown on the very first drive. And it was a safety that was on one of his very first plays of the season, coming back from injury, so a little rust. And other than that, they shut him out. So just a really impressive job. You go back to the other games, those games are probably shutouts if the backups don't give up late scores. So the defense has been stellar, and like I said, the interior defensive line looked like just freaks. You got Kenneth Grant, who is a mountain of a man, who is just single-handedly shutting down the run game. As a sophomore, I know a lot of people are big on Mason Graham. He missed last week, and they barely even missed a beat. It's just a deep spot, and I've really enjoyed watching them just shut down the opposing team's run game. So if you can make a team kind of one-dimensional, you have a great shot as a defense. So I've been really, really encouraged by the defense, and specifically the defensive line or interior defensive line.
I was really happy with how they handled business against Rutgers, a team who has been handling their business up until that point. And that felt like a little bit of a game that could have jumped up and bit Michigan. Even in the past few years, Rutgers has kind of been a thorn in Michigan's side, and they handled business. If you listen to last week's episode, I was a little nervous about how this Michigan team would handle business playing against a Big Ten team after their preseason of the first 3 games. And they won convincingly. Again, it wasn't like a blowout. Michigan seems to be incapable of scoring 40 points this year. But that seems to be picky at this point. When you, like you said, they're only giving up 7 points a game. Rutgers had some studs on that team, and they shut them down. And Rutgers was beating teams. They were undefeated going into that game. I know it's still Rutgers, so I'm not beating that drum too hard. But it's just a game where I'm really happy that they came in and took care of business. That was something that I think you can really look at and compare it to the last 2 years, where that's what they did when they needed to. They went in and took care of business against these teams that they needed to. And so this gave me some hope moving into the rest of the season as well.
My pro is kind of a pro and a con at the same time, and it's that JJ is Goku from Dragon Ball, not One Punch Man. So here's what I mean by that. First off, JJ is just everything Goku energy, super smiley, zen, and friendly, both just super lovable characters. And from some of the first few games that we've seen so far, we've seen that JJ is capable of going Super Saiyan. He is capable of getting that confidence to fit the ball into tiny windows and making some plays that look like he just shouldn't be able to make. And so when JJ is on, he is on, and he is capable of being an elite passer. That said, he's not One Punch Man. He's not somebody who's just going to win every fight without even breaking a sweat. Sometimes Goku gets into a fight and he learns that he's just got to get even more powerful. He's got to go back to the drawing board. He's got to train harder. And I think JJ got that. He got smacked in the mouth week 3. Or I might have the weeks mixed up. But whenever we played Bowling Green, that was a rough performance. He was not Super Saiyan. He was just regular farmer Goku. And, he needs to go back to the drawing board, and he needs to dig deep within himself to reach that next level, to go Super Saiyan Ultra. And I think he's capable of doing that. But we just saw through these first couple weeks that, he's prone to some really high highs and also some really low lows. I think the pro here, though, is that we know he's capable of the highs. We do have a really good rushing attack. Even if it hasn't been up to 2022 standards, we do have a really strong rushing attack that can sort of take over when JJ does fluctuate. I'm just hoping that he's able to get that ironed out sooner rather than later once we get into these games where we're going to have to lean on his arm a little bit more heavily.
That's a good one. I kind of struggled with how to classify JJ because if we would have done this a little earlier, maybe after the first 2 games, if you were to rank the best players on the team, you would have had JJ number 1. And then his Bowling Green performance was so bad. Like, it was like he completely imploded. and it kind of brought him down to earth and some. So that was a good way to sum that up. Who wants to share their negative, or do you have any more positives before we get into the bad?
I guess the one thing I would tack on that I kind of mentioned last week is just that the offense has been the most balanced we've ever seen it. Game script has been 50-50 as far as passes and as far as runs go. And when Harbaugh was saying that it's going to be a more balanced offense in the offseason, we all pretty much said, yeah, right. We'll believe it when we see it, because that is just not his mantra. That's not his way. And even now, watching this team throw the ball as much as it runs the ball, I got to imagine that Harbaugh is just like slowly seizing up on the sideline, because that is just so contrary to, the heart of the way he believes football should be played. But that said, he's been true to his word. They've been very, very split. And I think, even though we've seen JJ struggle, it's important that he gets the reps to work through that struggle. Whereas our biggest concern last year was we weren't going to know because he was never tested. Certainly you don't want him to be tested against Bowling Green, so it's still concerning. But the fact that he's getting those reps in, that certainly is a positive. So he's able to work some of those struggles through early on in the season.
I also forgot to mention my guy Chris Jenkins on the D-line. Don't want people screaming at the podcast saying Brandon doesn't know his D lineman. Chris Jenkins is fantastic, and it's going to be a high draft pick. So the fact that I listed the interior D-line and then I listed 3 guys, like they have an embarrassment of riches there. So lot of positive, lot of pros. It's kind of crazy to think we're a third of the way through the season. I'm going to go into a negative that I've been really frustrated with, that I don't feel like going into this. I do feel like going into the season, I thought they had like 4 different options at offensive tackle. And I thought, okay, you have 4 guys I think can do it, so someone's going to do it. And last game against the Rutgers, they rotated Ladarius Henderson at left tackle, and when he played left tackle, Carson Barnhart played right tackle. And then they'd take him out, the guy who actually started the game, Miles Hinton, played right tackle, and Carson Barnhart played left tackle, where he has started the majority of the season. And it just seems crazy to me that we're 4 games in, and they just now started to get Ladarius Henderson snaps. He really didn't play much in the first 3 games, and now it's like, well, it's really not working. You took him as a transfer for a reason. I just am very confused as to the development, and I think maybe that's an issue with Sharon Moore trying to coordinate an offense and not just coordinate an offensive line, where we're having some things slip through the cracks. I mean, you've got, I noticed against Rutgers they had a later substitution, and then they had a delay of game on a field goal that our kicker made, but they had moved it back 5 yards, and then he missed the next field goal. And so it just kind of seems like they're a little late on some stuff, where this guy should have been playing in the first game, and they said they were going to split reps at offensive tackle, and then they just didn't. And now we're about to play Nebraska, and it's the 5th game of the season, and they still haven't figured out who their guys are going to be. And for a guy who's making a position switch, Ladarius Henderson, from guard to tackle, he needs as many reps as possible. And if he's going to play left tackle, that's like the most important position on the offensive line. So get the guy, if he's going to be the guy, get him rolling so that he can be good against your best opponents. So I'm a little annoyed with how the offensive line has played. I think there's a reason the running game has struggled, and they just haven't had as many holes to run through. Yes, the running backs are to blame partially for that too, but offensive line has been disappointing in my opinion. The interior's been good. The tackle play I think has been pretty poor, and I hope it will improve.
Yeah, to add on to that, I think kind of throwing a silver lining on that critique, which I am very much in the same boat, Bran. You want to see more coordination from that O-line. They have not looked good. Like in many of these runs, part of it you could put on the running backs not being patient enough, just making reads that they wouldn't usually make in mid-season form last season. But a lot of the times when you look back at the film, there's some really glaringly missed assignments from this O-line. And so that didn't sound like a silver lining at all. I'm getting there. The silver lining is now, Sharon Moore is not trying to worry about his audition as being a head coach. He can focus a little bit more on the O-line. We also have 3 guys that you mentioned that have transferred in: Ladarius Henderson, Drake Nugent, Miles Hinton. All these guys transfers. None of them were actually involved in spring training. And so I know that they had all summer. So you would hope them to be a little bit more developed at this point. But, I do think that it's a possibility that this is something that does get ironed out as the season goes on. I'm hoping so. I think that it's just a situation where it could only stand to improve. I think there's certainly the possibility that it does. We just might have to give them a few more weeks. But certainly frustrating. You would hope that they would have figured it out by now.
Yeah, this is a gripe. It's not that important, but you just want to see guys produce. And so when you're playing the tier of opponent that Michigan has played, and Michigan hasn't had a 100-yard rusher yet, it's really mind-boggling, and it is a little concerning. And it's just not as fun. Like, we want to see our guys rush. We haven't had a long touchdown run yet. That's crazy. These running backs should be having at least one per game. So I do think you're right. I think it'll get better. I just want to see it get better sooner. Let's not wait till the season's over.
Yeah,
that's something. Go ahead, Trev.
With Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards going on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast before the season started, saying we're thunder and lightning, we're the best running back duo in the country, you'd expect to see some ripped off long runs. And I don't know if we will see that from Blake Corum this year. I think we've seen maybe his longest touchdown or his longest run of the season already. And he's a good runner still. He hits holes well. I appreciate Blake Corum, but there's not a blazing speed there. Donovan Edwards is shocking to me, though. That we haven't seen him bust one. And it's just, he's gotten the carries, but it just hasn't quite broken it off yet. So that's been shocking to me so far. Not to say that it's a bust or anything yet, but it's surprising.
Yeah, it is a little bit surprising actually to look back, and his production so far, speaking to Donovan Edwards, is actually similar to his 2022 campaign up to this point in the year. That said, it was the Blake Corum show last year. You'd hope to see him get a little bit more involved up to this point in the season. Now that we know what he's capable of, the star he really blossomed into at the latter part of last season, we haven't really seen him get those reps, but it's almost for good reason because he hasn't really looked explosive when he's gotten the ball. He hasn't been able to find those gaps, even though, like I mentioned, there have been some missed assignments. It's tough to give a player that added layer of responsibility when he really hasn't done that well with it. And so I just wonder if maybe that thunder and lightning talk was something that they knew they were hot stuff and they didn't really have that hunger in the offseason. And maybe they weren't grinding quite as hard because they really looked like they had a lot of rust to break off in these first few games. It's not an actual preseason. The season started. And so these guys do need to wake up a little bit, keep putting in the work, watching the film, and hopefully we see an improved rushing attack against Nebraska. They're going to have to really bring their game, both the running backs and the O-line, because this is a top 5 rush defense in the NCAA. So they're going to have a pretty they're going to have a pretty tough task ahead of them.
I watched the Travis and Jason Kelsey documentary this weekend, and a saying on it that Jason Kelsey loves a lot is, "Hungry dogs run faster." And I just loved that. And I think you're right, Cody. You said they maybe didn't have that hunger. They were talking like they were fully fed. They were talking like they were already the best-ish in the country. And you know what? They were last year. But I just I don't like hearing talking like that preseason. Because you know what's happened this season when you were talking like that? Nothing yet. The season has not happened yet. And talk afterwards. We saw the same thing during our revenge tour where it was talking every week. And we were going to get revenge on everyone. This is our year. We are so great. Revenge on everyone. And you know what? We didn't get revenge that year. And it sucked. and it was another painful year. Talk after the year. I'm fine with that. You earned the talk at the end of last year, but going into the season, I don't know. So, Code, I agreed that I didn't see the hunger. But also shout out to the Kelsey documentary. It was super good. Better than I expected. Jason Kelsey is a baller.
I played in a disc golf tournament once against a guy who said he will purposely not eat before his tournaments because he wanted to stay hungry. And he felt like he had to earn his food.
No way.
He said there was something primal about it. He's like, I don't know. And I was like, I don't know if that's the smartest way to go about it. But you know what? He kicked my butt that day, so he's probably right. And so, you know...
I love that.
Yeah, Blake and Donovan, they got to stop eating up all this praise in the offseason. Stop talking and put in the work.
And, you know, I'm sure they worked hard, too. So, not to say they weren't working hard, but... we're just going based off what we've seen in games so far, and it hasn't been like mind blowing. And we were if you name yourself Thunder and Lightning, you better be booming and banging pretty often.
Gotta back it up. You guys got any more thoughts before we transition into talking about the Lions?
I had one more negative, and I just felt like I had to say it because it's one of my guys I listed as my favorite Wolverines this year, Braden
we should
McGregor.
Start with the negatives. It's kind of a bummer to end on the negatives.
I have a positive.
There we go.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Well, my negative was one of my Michigan boys I picked was Braden McGregor. Brandon heaped praise upon the interior defensive line, and I've got some concerns with the exterior defensive line, the edges. We're so used to greatness out there with Hutch, Ojabo, Winovich. We've had a lot of Gary. We've had a lot of greats. And so to have guys who are, who knows yet, they still could be very good. But just speaking specifically to my boy, who I was really excited to watch this year, McGregor, still intimidating to look at. He stands tall and all those tattoos, and he just looks tough. But he stands a little too tall, I think, around the defensive edge, too. Something I've been really thinking about a lot lately with defensive edges is the bend and twist that it takes. It's not just speed, it's not just strength. Like the flexibility and twist and bend of those guys. Look at the greats, and they're so flexy. Aiden Hutchinson, that's one of his great attributes. Watch him get around a guy, and he's bending so much. The Bosas do it as well. Not to hate talking about them on here, but McGregor, I think, stands a little straight up. Brandon was the one that pointed that out to me in the first place, I think. Still holding out hope for the edges, but that's something I've noticed so far.
You ready for my positive?
So ready.
So it's kind of a positive, but it depends on your definition, I guess. So we just recapped our pros and cons from the first third of the season. This next third, and I know, knock on wood or whatever, but I really think so. The first third, it's been described, I've heard it described that Michigan has sleptwalked through, and they still have won all these games basically by the same score. Low to mid 30s to 7 or 3. And I think pretty strongly that the next 4 games are going to play out very similarly, because we're playing Nebraska. Nebraska's at Nebraska, and screwy things happen there, but Nebraska's half a football team. They don't throw the ball. If you are half a football team, you shouldn't be able to compete against Michigan. If you have problems as Michigan football team, you have bigger problems than Nebraska. Then they have Minnesota. Minnesota just lost to Northwestern, and it's not the same Minnesota they've been the past 4 or 5 years under PJ Fleck. This is a bad Minnesota team.
Yeah.
Then Indiana comes to the big house. Indiana is probably the worst team in the Big Ten. And that's saying something. The Big Ten sucks. Other than the top group, the Big Ten West is terrible this year. It's really just Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, and everyone else is just pretty much garbage. Wisconsin's, I guess, decent, but they're not good. Then we get I'm sorry. That's 1, 2, 3. Then we get Michigan State. So I know Michigan State's like usually a weird game, but Michigan State is getting trounced by every team with a pulse. Washington put up over 700 yards, and that was basically through just 3 quarters because they took Penix out after that. They really just got absolutely trounced by Maryland. So the next 4 games, the next third of the season, you can kind of set your watch to it, and I don't think you really have to get your blood pressure high or like get too overly excited about it. So then the next third is where everything's going down because you have specifically the last 3 games: Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State. But I don't know if that's comforting, but just to be able to almost set your watch. I know I'm like cursing Michigan right now, but to be able to say, yeah, we'll be 8-0. Like we take that for granted. A lot of seasons we'd be like killing for that type of record, and even if it's not as like, we didn't score 40 points, well, you are absolutely in the middle of the hunt for the playoff, for the Big Ten championship, and everything's right ahead of you. So this is something to just have confidence in, because these teams, they're not very good, and Michigan should be able to use them as opponents to sharpen against.
Bran, you brought up Minnesota, and I thought that was a good time to bring up my newfound distaste for PJ Fleck. I've always been a PJ guy from his time at Western, but Jaron, our super fan, hates PJ Fleck. This goes out to you, Jaron. This last weekend, I made 2 parlays that were stupid. One was a 10-pick parlay, one was a 20. I won the 10, and I lost the 20-pick parlay by 1 game, and it was Minnesota just had to win, and they lost in overtime. Minnesota was up they were up 31-10 going into the 4th quarter, and if you watch the highlights of that game, highlights is the wrong word. Watch the lowlights of that game. It was like a circus. It was Minnesota trying to lose that game. Just ridiculous things going on. The most ridiculous one was, Cody, I think, said this all the time, that punt coverage is the hardest job in football, apparently. Trying to touch a ball down before it goes into the end zone.
Seriously.
I think people go stupid, and especially this Minnesota dude, because the ball's bouncing, he lines up 4 yards deep in the end zone and waits for the ball to come to him and catches it. Like happy, looks around and goes, oh, thinking that he downed it. Great. And he was way into the end zone. And there was a few more. I wish I could remember them, but stupid. PJ Fleck,
That's right up there.
I'm disappointed.
Yeah. Special teams players are right up there with brick hands defensive backs and people trying to recover a fumble for like 20 straight seconds that just don't make sense to me, that appear just way harder than it possibly could ever be. It's a mystery to me, like how airplanes stay in the air. Science can't tell us.
No, they can't tell us. There's no science that explains that.
None. It's
magic. Magic is what it is.
It is magic.
Exactly. Well, boys, Travis, my heart goes out to you. My deepest condolences. It may not be much of a silver lining, but you sent me like one of the longest parlays I've ever seen actually hit, and even getting 19 out of 20, that was unbelievable. That was spectacular. So I mean, it didn't make you rich, but good job.
Thanks. I think
I'm proud of you anyway.
Both of you guys had hit some really good ones lately, and Brandon was talking about when you just sometimes
never hit anything like that.
No, we're not making the same parlays. Brandon's really put me onto same game parlays. I feel like those are just like a bit more predictable. Just trying to get a read on the game script for one singular game. Never in my wildest dreams have I ever gotten close to smashing a 20-pick multi-game parlay.
Well, that 20-pick, both of them. I think college football is the easiest sport to bet. Don't try that. Well, honestly, don't try that with any sport. But NFL, I mean, they're all pros. College, I feel like you can get a feel for how some things are going to go. I mean, the sports books are still the best at it, and you'll probably lose every time. But
It's the easiest.
But yeah, and it wasn't straight money lines or picking who would win. Brandon got me into picking alt lines a little bit. Alt lines are where it's at, because if you got a feeling somebody's going to win, but you don't love the line, just alt it quite a bit, and your confidence level goes through the roof. Maybe foolhardily, but
you watch lines and then the results of games long enough, and you realize that Vegas, the people in charge of those lines, are wizards. They are incredibly good at their jobs, whether it's the spread or the over-under. They are, I mean, and, you know, there's the occasional game where just, like, the score absolutely blows up. Like, nobody knew the Dolphins would put up 70 points on the Broncos, right? But for the majority of the time, those numbers are really, really good. And so, you know, picking just one side of that, it's going to be more of a 50-50 battle. But it's probably going to be pretty close to that line. So if you can tease that one way, it's gonna help you quite a bit.
I'll caution you, Trav. Yeah. DraftKings has kind of nuked their alt lines where you used to be able to go 10 points and now you can only go 5.
Yeah, I noticed that. So
it felt like less than 5 sometimes.
Yeah, and
like
they also
some games.
Yeah, they make sure to adjust the slider by half a point, so it makes you feel like you're dragging more, but it's only 5.
Yeah.
You think you're slick, DraftKings, but we noticed.
The spread's 24.5. I altered it all the way down to 22.5.
Exactly. Exactly. So yes, I am taking my parlay deals to FanDuel. I will not be doing those on DraftKings. But they do still have some pretty awesome promos, so sometimes I got to jump on that anyways.
Making that on DraftKings, you can have betting groups, and you can see your friends' bets. And we just recently made one with all of us. It's so fun. I get notified that Brandon or Cody made a bet, and it's so fun. And you can tail them.
Mm-hmm. Especially when, like, you know football or something's about to be on, but you just didn't put the time in to research anything, but you want to have a bet to follow. So you see somebody put a bet down, and you're like, all right, I'm all in. Let's go. We're riding together. It's awesome.
And when you're riding together, it's even more fun.
Mm-hmm. The highs are even higher. I wish I would have tailed you on that 10-pick parlay, Trav. Even the 20-pick. That would have been a blast just to watch. Sometimes you need those heartbreaks just to remind you how much you can feel. I know I felt that in the Jets-Bills game earlier on in this season. But, you know, getting back to NFL action, we should probably cover our boys in Detroit because they've earned it. They've had a pretty solid start to the season, 2-1. I don't remember the last time they have had that good of a record the first 3 games in. Usually at this point in the season, we're already having talks about, you know, who our prospective next head coach should be. So to be 2-1, starting off, it feels good. With wins over the Chiefs and a previously 2-0 Falcons team, no less. Guys, how did you feel about that victory over the Falcons, and what are some of your biggest takeaways?
I don't understand what happened to the defensive line.
Yeah.
How they got 7 sacks. Where did that come from?
They were always just the best D-line in the nation. We've been saying that.
See, the Seahawks game, they had 2 backup offensive tackles, and they could not get near Geno. And they weren't able to sack Patrick Mahomes. They did pressure him, but they didn't get the sack. And then 7 against the Falcons. I just cannot wrap my mind around it. If they were to play that kind of defense every week, they would be Super Bowl champs. So I'm not expecting that to be like that good, but if they can just capture just like a quarter of that production every game, or, you know, up to even a half, they would be such an awesome team. So yeah, I'm really curious to watch the defense against the Packers this week against a young quarterback. Man, I was having a ball watching them. I felt bad for Desmond Ridder because I like Desmond Ridder, but also, man, was it cool to see Aiden Hutchinson get 2 sacks, to see Jack Campbell get his first sack and then just sprint into the locker room because it's halftime because he's all business.
He is all business.
I read something of, I think it was one of the safeties, maybe Tracy Walker. I can't remember what player. I think it was Tracy Walker said during the preseason camp he walked by Jack Campbell at his locker, and Jack had his head down, and he wasn't staring at a phone. He was just staring at the ground, and he was like, "Hey, Jack, are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he just continued to stare. Like, he was just so in the zone. Like, the guy was just getting ready to kill, and he's just all business. So the defense was awesome against the Falcons. What did they give up? 3 points? Am I remembering that
6.
right? 6 points. Man, was that
Good
fun
game by
to watch.
Young Ho.
Yeah, got him on my
Young Ho
on
is
my
a
fantasy
stud.
team. So he missed one field goal, I think, but
Doesn't
he
matter.
did.
Still stud.
he's still an awesome fantasy kicker. But to shut down Bijan Robinson, man, what a game! So I was focused on the defense.
Yeah, I think the defensive line success in week 3 is right up there with special teams ineptitude, trying to recover a fumble for 20 seconds, and airplanes staying in the air as things that defy logic and science. I don't understand. I don't know if I'll ever understand what got into the defensive line. Contrary to my sarcasm earlier, this was my biggest concern going into the season, was our defensive line. Our lack of depth, our lack of urgency in drafting at that position really seemed to just be kind of careless to me. And, they showed up and they took care of business. They didn't just take care of business. They absolutely shut down the number 1 run offense in the NFL. Bijan and Tyler Algier have been having their way with NFL defenses up to this point in the season. Every game, they're averaging 170 yards together on the ground. We held them to 44 in week 3. Like Brandon said, I don't expect that to happen every week or ever again, actually. But the fact that it happened is just astounding. So, you know what? Screw it. Our defensive line is elite. That's what you can expect moving forward. Super Bowl champs 2023. Book it. Couldn't be more pumped. One of my big takeaways, is the defense elite? I don't know. But you know who is elite? Laporta. We need to be getting the ball into that guy's hands. He is a stud. Went for a line of, I think it was 8 receptions and 84 yards and a tutty. This dude is a rookie and is already tight end 2 in the entire NFL. That is just bonkers. And, you already had an idea. Detroit Lions love to use their tight ends. But to come in and already start putting up Hawkinson numbers, and actually, honestly, even better than Hawkinson numbers than when he was here in Detroit, that is just something that cannot be stated enough how special and just amazing that is, and how huge that'll be for the Lions moving forward. Especially, with this wide receiver core that's maybe a little bit depleted at the moment. We are still chomping at the bit to get J-Mo here. That offense is going to take the next step up when he gets here. But until that point, it's huge to have a tight end that you can rely on.
Yeah, you guys brought up 2 rookies there. 2 rookies left to talk about. Branch looks like the steal of the draft for where the Lions drafted him. But yeah, what a stud. What a game he had. His stat line, he set some NFL rookie record for the stat line he put up, like earliest to do it or something. Don't remember what it was exactly, but he looks explosive. He hits hard. When he hit... was it Bijan that he hit and popped his helmet off? I heard later that he was just saying, fine, whatever, I'll take it. It's worth it. Because he laid a lick, and he just knew the message it sent, and he was fine with the penalty. I mean, he obviously didn't want it, but he licked him hard and got the penalty. He just sounds like a dog. And then the best running back in the draft, obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs. This was RB1 versus RB2, and RB2 came out with the win. And, I mean, no one's honestly making that argument that Gibbs is better than Bijan, because Bijan has looked like a monster so far, except against the Lions. But Gibbs had a perfectly fine game, too. Gibbs is proving to be a good fantasy back, but that doesn't matter as in real football. But, I mean, Gibbs' line was pretty nice, too. 80 rushing yards, pretty solid. The thing is, he hasn't been much of a force in the receiving game yet, which is surprising. I thought we were going to see him get 3 to 4 receptions a game, and this one he had 1 reception. I think he might have even dropped a ball or two, which was surprising to me, but not a red flag. I'm happy to see what we've seen from him as well. The way they beat this Falcons team, 20-6, the Falcons are going to be a playoff team, at least fighting for it. It's them or the Saints, and the Saints are looking pretty iffy right now. The Falcons are only going to get better with all the young talent on their team. They already beat another playoff team in the Chiefs. Heck, probably a Super Bowl team in the Chiefs. I think Seattle's probably a playoff team. This Lions team is a bunch of fighters, and it's been a lot of fun. So tomorrow, if you're listening to this Thursday, today against Green Bay is going to be a big game, but I think they can do it, but I'm excited to watch it.
The more you guys keep talking about it, with stopping the run game, getting 7 sacks, I like to think that after you die, you in heaven you might have an opportunity to ask God some questions, because there's a lot of things. There's mysteries of the universe. I genuinely might ask, what happened for the Lions to have a championship elite level defensive line in week 3 against the Falcons? It literally just boggles the mind, because if we go and play the Packers and just play back like regular, like, oh man, we can't get pressure on Jordan freaking Love, then I'm going to be I won't be astounded because I kind of expect it, but I'll just be so frustrated. Like, that was championship level defensive play. Please have it be a fraction of that consistently, please. So I don't have this gnawing at my brain for the rest of my days and counting the days until I can ask God what happened, because I just don't understand it. Just like Cody said, it's maybe magic. It is not scientific. There's no explanation.
If you're asking him that, I'm going to ask him if the Lions have been legitimately cursed, and if so, if that makes Bobby Lane a prophet. And then, tertiarily, did Peyton Manning break the curse? These are the answers that I need to know. Surprise
of the century, it's Bobby Lane who welcomes you into the pearly gates when you die.
Oh.
That is a surprise.
What a twist.
It's like, I've been challenging all of you Lions fans your whole life. You passed the test.
He hands you a cold one as you walk through the gates.
You are definitely not Peter.
And you're definitely not in heaven.
I'm Bobby Lane.
Yeah, I can park wherever I dang please. Bobby Lane used to park his car wherever he wanted to in Detroit. Mm-hmm. He'd get drunk and just park his car on the sidewalk. They didn't do anything about it because it was Bobby Lane. Was that the glory days? No, okay, not the glory days because of that. But like, that era of sports, that era of sports is nuts. Like, the things that people did. We talk about athletes being nuts now. I'm like, oh, he gambled on baseball or football. Well, Babe Ruth would go out with the other team the night before, and they'd try to get him drunk just so he could struggle, and then he'd hit 2 homers off you and say, "We going out again tonight, boys?" What an era.
Mm-hmm.
What an era. You guys got some predictions for the Lions, Green Bay?
You know,
Or some
I don't know
bets
about
to
predictions. Bets? That one I'm going to have to look into a little bit more. I do have our boys coming in way with the dub there. You know, I think if there's any carryover from our defensive line into this next week, they were able to stay relatively healthy. I don't know if it was game planning or what, but if they're able to get any sort of pressure on Jordan Love and also limit that run game a little bit as well, I mean, that's my key for victory. If they're able to do that, I think they will be able to do it to a degree. I think the Lions win this one fairly comfortably. So far, they have balled out against very solid opponents. I do think that Green Bay is a team that has potential but isn't quite there yet, and they have a young quarterback who's still trying to find his footing. And so if you can make that pocket as uncomfortable as possible, I do think Lions come away with a dub here fairly easily. That said, if they give him a Geno pocket, like we saw in Week 2, this could be a shootout. And that's the type of game I don't want to see the Lions get in. In all of these victories, the Lions have not been putting up a huge bevy of points, you know, as just 20 points and 21 points respectively against the Chiefs and the Falcons. So if you give Love time in the pocket, they're gonna be throwing quite a bit. They're gonna go to the air. It's gonna be a high scoring game, and I don't know if that's something that the Lions are up to, staying up with that at this point. I think they're capable of taking that leap, but I don't think the offense is quite at its full stride just yet. Get pressure, keep it a low-scoring game, and squeeze the life out of them with the defense, and I think we walk away with this one. I would like to take a teased Lions cover and bet the under.
I like that
Lions
code.
Cover. Bet the over?
Under.
Under.
If the Lions are going to cover, I think it's going to be in a more low-scoring affair.
I like that a lot. The over-under is set at 46 right now, so it's not that high. Imagine betting I wonder what the over is going to be set for Miami next week. But anyways, and the Lions are only favored by 1.5, and I think that the world is pretty high on Green Bay still. I think it's hard for the world to get high on the Lions. And if you follow the Lions, if you truthfully believe in them, and this might be a game where you go heavy on the Lions, where you can get in a little bit early before, like, by the time the Lions play Green Bay again this year, the line might look a little different. But early on, I mean, Green Bay just snuck out a game against the Saints last week where they were down 17-0 and still pulled it out after Derek Carr got hurt. So there's some. I don't think Green Bay is as good as their record of 2-1, and I think the Lions are as good as their record of 2-1. Should be 3-0. But I'm okay with the 2-1. I think they're a really good 2-1 team. I think Green Bay is on the lower end of the 2-1 teams. That being said, I'm going to bet probably the Lions cover that. I don't know about the over-under code because I don't know, like Brandon said, I don't know if I believe in this defensive line yet. And Green Bay does have a pretty good running game. And their wide receivers are coming around. I think Christian Watson should be healthy for this next game. I don't know that for a fact, but even if he's not, Luke Musgraves and Jaden Reed, Green Bay might have two of the better rookie producers. They're starting to produce for their offense pretty good. And then Romeo Doubs doing pretty well as well. So, interesting offense over there. I might take the over on that one, but I have not been betting the over-under as much this year. I've been kind of avoiding that because it's just so hard, especially Thursday nights. Thursday nights seem to be hitting unders a lot lately.
I'll say this. Yes, that for sure. Thursday night games are wonky. I like to parlay, a teased cover and then just like an over or under just so I can have positive odds. And if I can get close to 50-50, that makes sure that I eliminate, the house tax, essentially, so I can still be about even. But if the line is 1.5, I'm probably going to tease that up a little bit and pick the Lions to cover an even higher spread because this is a game that I think the Lions win. They don't just scrape by. I do believe in this team, and like I said, I don't know if we're going to get week 2 or week 3 Lions run defense, but they are currently the 3rd most efficient defense in stopping the run. I know week 3 is a little bit, skewing those facts a little bit, but they did really well against the Chiefs as well. As long as they can avoid just absolutely allowing the Packers to gash them, I don't think they will. Aaron Jones has been a little bit dinged up, so he's going to be pretty key in on that. But again, like I said, Love is a young, inexperienced quarterback. So I say you stack the box and bring pressure heavy and often. Challenge him to beat you. Don't give him the time to do it. Challenge him to beat you. Force them to beat you through the air. Force them to dump it off quick. And if you can get that pressure, then I think it's going to be a little bit tougher of a game than what Green Bay has been forced to encounter up till this point in the year. This isn't the same Lions team that they have faced in years past, and I think they're going to see that come week 4.
So I'll throw a little bit of cold water on this Lions fire we got going. I believe on the podcast after the Seahawks loss, I said that what I think this team is like the other Lions teams of old. They are going to have some games, like the Chiefs game, where they look awesome. They suck you in. They take your heart and they say, I will care for you. I will be there. And then, like that horrible boyfriend who just goes about looking for other women, they have a Seahawks game where they don't care for you. For some reason, they cannot get any pressure on Geno Smith, even with 2 backup offensive tackles in that game, and you lose a game that you should have won, and then your heart breaks. And then they do it again with the Falcons where, out of the blue, your defensive line gets 7 sacks. What? Where did that come from? And now you're wondering, am I going to get good Lions or bad Lions? And I'm worried that it's possible that they could have a reversion to the Seahawks game Lions, because it's an early week, you're playing on a Thursday night, it's at Lambeau, and I'm concerned. So I'm guarded. I'm also a little worried because the spread is only 1.5 points. I think the Lions are the better team, and the majority of the money is on the Lions to cover and on the Lions money line. And I don't believe that number has moved very much. So my head says the Lions are going to flip-flop back to the bad Lions. They're going to break our hearts. We're going to be really upset. My heart says these aren't the same old Lions. Yes, they will have bad games. They will also have elite games, apparently. And I think that if they just play a pretty good game, they should be able to get this win. I think I'm going to let my heart win, which is dumb, but the bet that I like on DraftKings is straight up Lions money line because they have the plus up 7 promo. So if the Lions score first, you win. And that takes away some of my jadedness because I can feel like, hey, as long as we get up and then the Lions start screwing it up, it won't hurt me. So that kind of helps me guard myself from thinking that, well, if they screw it up, I might still be able to cash that bet. The other thing that I'm not going to place yet, but I'm keeping an eye on, is one of my favorite bets is David Montgomery, anytime touchdown scorer. If he's healthy, I can't place that until I believe he's actually going to play. But if he's healthy, he is their goal line back. He is their red zone back. And he's basically like Jamal Williams last year. And the guy had 20 touchdowns. And David Montgomery looks like he could do that too. So that's plus odds. And if you put a boost on there, you're going to get closer to like a plus 150 or 160. So that's what I like, but I haven't dug into it too much yet.
I do want to shout out. You go, Code. Mine's not betting.
Okay. I was going to say that up 7 promo is probably the best bet you can get in on. I'll be taking that as well. But I just wanted to throw some fire on that cold water real quick with a comparison that might be a bit ludicrous. Don't worry about it. It's it's a wildfire. Your water does nothing. So in my mind, Jared Goff is like J.J. McCarthy if he was in his Geno Smith era. So this is J.J. without legs, but he's more seasoned and a little bit wiser. So imagine J.J., but he's gotten some leg injuries, and now he has to stay in the pocket. And he has zero mobility, but he makes much better reads now. I see them as kind of similar in that they are both pretty streaky at times, but also massively underrated because they are both able to absolutely pop off. And Jared Goff, Jared can cook. And if the Lions let him cook, I think that Green Bay is going to be in for a long night. My big thing is that we just need to take more deep shots. I've been noticing that we have really been wearing defenses down with more of almost like a West Coast style of offense, and I like that. But in the NFL, a pass interference is a spot foul. It's not 15 yards. It's right where it happens. You got to sometimes just take that shot. And one thing I've been seeing is that Goff's deep ball has been looking pretty. Let him chuck the ball. Let him air it out. And I think once we add that dimension to our game, especially once we get J-Mo out back in and he's adding that deep threat, I think that is going to take our offense to the next level. But the other thing I'm still yet to see, we were talking about Gibbs getting a bit more action in week 3. He still only had 1 reception for 2 yards. I think, Travis, you mentioned this. He's not being used in the passing game. I want to see him get 6 receptions in a game, at least. I want to see him go on the wheel route. I want to see halfback slants. I want to see slip screens. I want to see, that like little forward shovel pass that Tua did that looked super awesome to Devin Achane. I want to see him involved in all sorts of ways, and I do still think that's something that is on the horizon. I think Ben Johnson is just yet to release it. Gibbs is special, and I think that we've only yet to see just the tip of the iceberg that is his offensive potential.
We are going to use him in ways people do not expect.
I don't think you say that and then just like, in all seriousness, this is what you had in mind, because that's insanity. Yeah, we're going to gash him right up in between the tackles with our speed back. Like, no, that can't be it. There's got to be more. And we've already seen this guy's got speed and he's got talent as a receiver. Let him show it. Let him use it. Especially when especially when we need more help in the receiving core. Unleash him.
I want to shout out a guy who on this Lions team just got called back up to this Lions team and it was honestly huge. Dan Skipper. Last year got a game ball in a game for just showing up and showing out. Just barely made the team last year. This year, he didn't make the team. Wasn't on the team. I think he was on a different team. I think it was Colts practice squad. Lions, anyways, got him this week because of the offensive line injuries. Skipper's back on the field and did really good. What's it take to just keep this guy on the team? But he must practice real bad because he's always just a fringe roster guy. Then when he gets in there, Dan Campbell loves him. He plays out, and he filled that role really well with another injured lineman in there. So, Dan Skipper, thank you. You were a big part of our offense being slightly successful against Atlanta.
I just want to take it back to the Packers real quick before we wrap things up here. We talked a lot about, Lions' keys to victory. We talked a lot about heaven and Bobby Lane. But talking about Green Bay Packers, I'm curious what you guys would compare them to if you were trying to think of like the villain that best encapsulates who the Packers are, whether that be from like a comic book or some sort of fictional universe. What would you guys say is your villain that is the Green Bay Packers?
My villain is Two-Face from Batman, because I can't quite get a hold on what this Packers team is. And with Two-Face, you're not really sure if you're going to get the Harvey Dent side or if you're going to get more like the Two-Face side that's more like psychotic. And I don't know. Should I be afraid of the Packers? They've really ruled the NFC North for my entire life? Or are they on the downswing? I can't tell. Is Jordan Love legit? Is he going to be someone I should be afraid of? This Thursday, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm also a little nervous because I think it's going to tell me a lot about who this team is. And with Harvey Dent, with Two-Face, you're not always sure, is he going to be this terrifying villain, or is he going to be just the district attorney that puts villains behind bars? So that's my villain. Another reason is he is always asking the coin for what he should do, right? He flips the coin. If you go back to the Dark Knight, he basically is defeated because he can't decide, should I kill this kid? Which in general, don't. Like, just don't. You don't have to decide. Don't let a coin decide that. He flips the coin and
Just
Batman
don't.
tackles him, and then he falls to his death. And with I talked about Jordan Love, with a young quarterback, there's that millisecond, that half second of not sure what to do. And just like Two-Face, if you take advantage of that little moment where they're like, I'm not sure what my read is, I'm not sure if I should throw this ball or if I should come off and go to another guy, if you take advantage of that, you can defeat him. And so that's the key for the Packers, I think. If they pressure Jordan Love, he's athletic, though, so you have to contain him also. It's going to be a challenge, but you take advantage. He's a young quarterback. This is going to be his first time playing against the Lions. You better make him feel it, just like they did against the Falcons. So take advantage of that split second of indecision, make him pay for it, and let's hope that he doesn't terrorize the Lions like the previous Green Bay Packers quarterbacks have.
Bran, I'm glad that you kind of had a analytical outlook on this, because I went solely based on vibes. So for me, the Packers are Lex Luthor. I tried to think of a villain who was just rich and can just get whatever they want and is maybe a bit spoiled. For me, that's the Packers. I think the Packers, as far as like superstar treatment goes, walked so that the Chiefs could run. You know, they paid off the refs before paying off the refs was cool. For me, that's the Packers. You know, you can see compilations on YouTube of just Aaron Rodgers complaining and getting his way, and also just screwing over the Lions. And so, you know, at least when the Packers had Brett Favre, you know, they would destroy the Lions, but it's like, man, Brett Favre's pretty cool. Like, that's a cool villain, right? But then Aaron Rodgers came to town, and he's the Jesse Eisenberg of Lex Luthers. So,
The worst.
can't stand the man. And yet, like, when you think of Lex Luthor, like, generally still liked by the public. And so that's something I can't stand, is like I have such a huge disdain for the Packers and also Aaron Rodgers. And I talk to a lot of my friends who aren't Lions fans, and they just don't get it. Like, they actually like the dude. They have no ill will towards the Packers. And I'm just like, you wouldn't understand. Just like Lex Luthor. Like, you know, he's just some rich guy. People don't understand he's an actual villain. Now the Packers don't have Aaron Rodgers, but it doesn't matter. They're still Jesse Eisenberg, Lex Luthor, because that hate doesn't go away. If anything, that has permanently tattooed a hatred for that team in my brain throughout the Aaron Rodgers years. So I actually don't have any ill will towards Jordan Love, but I hope that team never wins. And so, I mean, I don't know what to expect, like you said, Bran, but I don't think that I think that money, that rich treatment is generational. I don't think the NFL is going to stop giving Green Bay calls. That is a team that has done well, has had success, and I think that it's a team that they want to see in the postseason. They know they're going to do numbers when they're on the TV. And so even though they don't have Aaron Rodgers, I mean, I think that is going to have a little bit of an effect in terms of the influence on a game, not just statistically, but also the way a game is called. But I don't think that's going to go away just because Aaron Rodgers did. I still think that the NFL is going to look favorably upon this villainous team.
I like that code. I'm going to stay on the Batman trail as well. And my villain comes from my fourth favorite Batman movie, which is Batman and Robin. I think it came out in 97 or something. It was when Arnold Schwarzenegger was Mr. Freeze. underrated, I think, movie. But anyways, my villain isn't Mr. Freeze. It's Poison Ivy. And partially I thought that way because Poison Ivy uses love against you. She draws you in with love, then she kisses you, and then you're poisoned. Well, the lions, the way Robin ends up fighting Poison Ivy is at the end of that movie, he kisses her, and then he pulls off, he has just like rubber lips. He's like lip covering. So he still kisses her, he's like, oh, I could kiss you anyways. The lions version of that is the blue ski mask. And I think that the lions can handle Poison Ivy with love. So yeah, Green Bay, Poison Ivy.
Was not sure where you're going with that. I was like, you and I watch football very differently.
Trav, I do like that comp, but I gotta be honest, I didn't hear all of it because I was so distracted by your placement of Batman and Robin in the top 4. So I'm gonna need your Batman rankings, at least top 5, because I'm concerned.
Oh, the top 3 are the Dark Knight series.
And Batman and Robin is above the Batman?
The new Batman that just came out?
Yes.
Yeah, right now it is. That new Batman... The new Batman didn't strike a chord with me like I hoped it would.
You need to rewatch it.
I will rewatch it.
Oh, Trav.
Hey,
Oh,
okay,
Was that,
if
was
I'm going to
that an
rewatch
IMAX
that,
watch, Brand?
you guys need to rewatch Batman and Robin then.
Oh,
Deal.
I remember that one because I actually didn't. I did like that one, but I love the Batman. I think it's fantastic, but it's also kind of a hard watch because there's parts of it that are a little too real. Mm-hmm. Where you've got the corrupt systems that are creating these fringe types that are going to shoot people. Like in this society, it's a little bit of a hard watch, but also that makes it a good movie.
Where does that
you guys
rank in your all-time Batman's, Bran?
Oh man,
Yeah, I knew that'd be a tough one. I think I might put it at number 3.
What Dark Knight are you bumping out of the top 3?
Batman Begins.
No,
2 and 3 are my,
in your top
my
3.
all-time faves. They kind of go back and forth. I think Dark Knight is probably the best Batman movie, but Dark Knight Rises is my favorite.
Dark Knight Rises is my number 1 as well.
It's just so fun.
Yep.
this is so hard.
I love Bane. I love Batman getting his back broken.
It's tough. I really like the Batman. I just rewatched it, but it's too long. They really linger on, like, I can think of quite a few scenes where they take all this time to just focus on just these still shots or these long shots of Batman, like walking or like brooding or looking at something. It's like, man, cut that in half, cut that scene in half. It should have been in 2.5 hours, not 3.
Should have been longer.
But all of the content
crap
was
up.
really enjoyable. I'm sorry. Okay, Trav, you rewatch it. And there's a scene where Batman, he flips over the Penguin's car. And there's like 30 seconds of Batman walking. And you can just see his boots in the rain just walking. And then he gets to the car and he peeks his head under. And you just see Batman's head just kind of looking upside down at the Penguin. It's just goofy. That scene was kind of funny, but also completely unnecessary.
You're ranking that ahead of this?
Oh, man.
And for
hard.
audio listeners, I'm showing a picture of Mr. Freeze. Arnold Schwarzenegger just silvered out.
I don't like that. He looks... Wait, yeah. He looks like a smaller Arnold Schwarzenegger than I'm used to. Something's going on
Who
with
is
him.
that behind him? It looks like, Hoth Luke from Star Wars mixed with Green Lantern.
Well, it looks like that guy has an eye mask on, so I'm thinking he's... That movie was so over the top, so every bad guy had, like, a secret identity. Even a henchman.
Okay, I'm going to give you off the cuff. So I prefer to rank things with full research done, but just for the sake of content, I'm just going off of vibes. Number 1 is The Dark Knight, because it's a perfect movie. Number 2, Lego Batman. Lego Batman is one of the best movies ever made.
Number two.
Number two.
The crap you just threw my way. And you just
excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Rewatch Lego Batman. It is possibly the best take on the Batman character there is.
Oh,
okay,
it's
you want to
great.
rank?
It's great.
If you want to rank like who is the best Batman, the Lego Batman, Will Arnett, he's at the very top.
He really good.
Nails it. Number 3.
Badman on YouTube.
No. Oh, he's so funny.
Where were the other drugs going?
It was supposed to be
number
Dustin
3,
Hoffman.
just for the sake of because I was talking it up, I'll say the Batman. Number 4. It's so tough. I love Batman Begins. I'll say
More than
Batman Begins, and then I'll say Dark Knight Rises, which I really like. Wow. Honestly, those two are basically the same to me. Then I'll say Batman and Robin.
Churlish. Wow. Deplorable.
All right. If you watch the Lego Batman, there's not a.
I love Lego Batman, but that is like a whole different category. Like that.
It's Batman with all of the Batman villains. It's the Joker. There's not a single part other than when the Joker says blink blink blinkety blink blink blink. I hate that part. Everything else is perfect. Lego
I
Batman.
even think that's funny.
No, it's not funny. It's dumb.
I don't think there's a part to that movie that I don't like, and yet I don't rate it with the other Batman movies. If one of the homies says, "Hey, let's watch a Batman movie," there is not a shred of a second where I think, I wonder if we should consider watching Lego Batman. No. Like, if we're trying to just,
the truest depiction of who Batman is, you should watch Lego Batman.
It's too on the nose. It's like, yes, it's accurate, because the opening, like, intro to him is just darkness, no parents. Well, actually, that's a Lego movie. But that's where you're first introduced to Batman. Like, that's his whole thing, is like, yeah, I'm super brooding, but I'm really cool. I love black. Like, yeah, of course that's Batman. He's telling you everything about himself, but he's not veiled at all. There's no nuance to it.
All right, it is 10:30
honestly
p.m.
makes me like it. Once we get to the point where we're debating the validity of the Lego Batman character compared to the other Batmans, that's when you know we've overstayed our welcome. So, probably time to wrap.
My plan for tonight, I was saying the time because I might be up all night, is I'm going to watch those 3 Batman movies in question tonight. Which order should I watch them in? Batman and Robin, The Batman, and Lego Batman movie.
Okay, so you want to start with The Batman because it's the darkest and probably most depressing.
That's a good point, because I fell asleep during Endgame last night and woke up during the funeral scene.
Oh, no.
And I just woke up as that song's playing, as they're scrolling through the crowd. I was like, well, I'm going to have a nightmare now. I know it. I'm so depressed.
By the way, I have some takes I got to fire off, but I cannot fire them off while recorded about the Batman. So just... let me know when you guys
subscribe
want to hear
to the Patreon,
yeah.
and you can hear all Brandon's absolutely unhinged QAnon.
Those ones would even be beyond the paywall because it is too extreme. But
money talks.
Yeah, you should watch the
for
Batman.
Our platinum subscribers,
and then either Lego Batman or Batman and Robin, because they're both a little more silly to maybe bring you up from the doldrums of the Batman. And that's maybe my problem, is I like the movies that are very dark and like gritty
me too.
and a little bit depressing.
The Batman's almost
All right.
also 3 hours, so I'd worry for your ability to finish it if you're closing out with that one.
All right, I'm gonna go the Batman and Robin, then Batman Lego Movie. So
Yeah, you will not stay up for the Lego Batman, so you might save that one for tomorrow.
exactly,
All right,
it's
so
perfect to fall asleep to.
we're going to wrap things up here, partially because we're just going off the rails at this point, and partially because I really want to hear Brandon's just unhinged takes. So we appreciate you guys sticking with us. If you're still with us for this long, we appreciate you. Let us know your rankings of all the Batman movies, including the Lego Batman movie, in the Discord. Also, fire up that mailbag section. We love to hear your guys' takes, and we'd love to address your questions on the pod. So thanks again for joining us. We can't wait to break down even more content from Michigan, the Lions, and all our other Michigan-based sports teams in the next week to come. So thanks again. We love you, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening. Stay classy, friends.